Okay, this is to do with an incident earlier where I was kicked in the neck in the helm. They can do stuff like that, spiritual kicking in the neck, by an ex martial arts tutor I had, which is the avatar that they're using. I don't know if it's real or not, but it seems it. And God says, is that martial arts or is it ballet? In other words, like martial arts, as such, is like seen as like a full system, and like God was indicating, you're in a classical mess. In other words, that they've done the spin of intellect on top of a kind of ground-based system that was probably formed out of peasants and all sorts of stuff. And like jazz, God was going on about jazz as well, like blues, how they take the clay of something, like from the workers, and then intellectualise it and then sell it back to the people and, more or less look down on them. So, like God says that, like some of this intellect is wasteful, I think he was just indicating test it, that these systems aren't holistic systems that are based in practicality. Like a lot of these people, I think it was, well, I'm not going to say who it was, but I know in the style that I chose when I was studying martial arts was a nun. She had to sort of defend herself out of like necessity, like this is like ground upwards kind of, I wouldn't say martial arts because that's like kind of yeast in it on top, but it was a system formed out of like a necessity at the time because they'd have to like defend themselves from being raped or killed, pillaged, stuff like that. So like what he's indicating is all this sort of intellectual yeast that they stick on top of things to resell it back to you, that that they're in control and they know better, like just test it. And this is like got the hallmarks of like Masons, Freemasonry, like they go on about like the mortarboard and education and all that, and like the way they're in control, and the extra stuff that they put on top to make them look more intellectual and make them feel more superior. Is this stuff actually test worthy? Is it worth anything, or is it just a style thing like what they do with art? In my time, you just crayoned a house, and then suddenly, like all this mythology came with my age group, courses, and like this person's better than you that does like photograph standard kind of art, and like this kind of politics and fascism comes into it. Like to me it's just like, an expression of your soul. And I think God says something, it's where your comfort is, where your home is in yourself. Art fulfills that thing, and they kind of take this clay that they find, like probably in colleges, and they're perusing for talent, to control it all the time. And they use it for their own agendas, political agendas, the establishment. Say Radiohead, for instance, like being as a bit of a theme on my channel, like the way they are, can be cultivated into like a kind of mind consensus for the youth to follow and stuff like that, and actually have like teams to development, or to develop their image and stuff in that way to be used. So they take the raw talent and then they kind of cultivate it for their own cultural purposes on the youth. Going on about intellect, and reinterpret it into a business model. I mean, this is how the Masons get into our society and governments. They infiltrate everything by business models. So they take the clay of what's original, and then they redevelop it and like redistribute it in their own kind of fascist way, sometimes fascist, sometimes good, and then like it becomes an industry standard where no one else can get in. This is what the Masons are about in our society. Like they keep everyone and everything out if it's different, or if it looks amateur in their eyes, but it's just a way of doing something. As I say, like I've had incidents where I've been perused at college, like if they see raw talent, they want to use it, and then like the sexual predators come out to control it. this is what I don't understand, you know, what's child sacrifice and sexual predators, and like they've got to get in on your soul as well. Who are these people that are tagged to it? Don't make no sense. So all I'm saying in this is, like, you know, with these classic, you know, martial arts, you know, like stewards of systems, you know, like it's good to tap it to see if it caves in, if it's hollow. And that's about it. Test it.